Good evening, everyone. We'll be starting in 2 minutes exactly. Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm Tanirika Roy, the Department Alumni Secretary for this academic year, as well as your host this evening. We're extremely privileged to have with us Mr. Nilesh Gandhi, General Manager at Reliance Industries Limited, with more than 13 years of industrial experience. So I hope you have enough to take back from the session today. I'm sorry to have kept you muted, but I assure you that I'll unmute you towards the end of the session and you can ask your questions and get your doubts cleared from sir. The final year students, do keep an eye out for a Google Form link that will be posted in the chat box towards the middle of the session. Fill it in carefully because we'll be tallying that with the attendance of teams so as to award incentive points to you. Without further ado, I'll hand you over to Mr. Gandhi to take this forward. Over to you, sir.
Yeah, thank you everyone. Thank you, Tanishka. And it's really a great feeling to coming back to the IIT. Like being an alumni of IIT, it's a really a special moment for me as well. Like connect back to the college. So I will just share my presentations and Tanishka, let me know once it's visible.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So thanks everyone. Well, and see. Uh, The topic I have chosen today as a just giving you a kind of like a snapshot of the chemical industry in a brief. I know that okay, probably a lot of chemical engineers right from the batch where I graduated, at least 50% of them started their career right in the software um, uh, and probably one of the reason is that people do not have the clear idea about the what are the opportunities available in the chemical industry. So what I'm trying to give today is that a brief overview of the what's the industry about and basically what are the different roles people play. So that's what I'm going to talk about today. And my main introduction remains is that I'm MTech Chemical Engineering from 2000 batch. So we used to call ourselves IITB MT2K. So that's the batch where we joined the IIT. So before I start the presentations, a very first disclaimer is that whatever I'm telling you here today is in my personal capacity as an alumni of IIT, and all the thoughts are my own. My current organizations, Reliance Industry, doesn't have anything to do about these presentations or things. And also, like this is more about like a knowledge sharings and giving you the feel of what's happening. So, uh, uh, gi- uh, just 1 minute. Yeah, sorry. So that's just a disclaimer to start with. And the idea is to share the knowledge and give something back to the pupil and try to answer your questions there. So you won't find anything Reliance specific material into it. This is a little comparatively generic presentations on that. To give coming back to my own introductions. So I have done my chemical engineering from Mumbai University, and after that I appeared for the GATE, and I was the All India rank holder one, and then obviously IIT Bombay became my first choice for pursuing the masters. So I joined the IITB in the year 2000, and 2000 to 2002 periods. That was the one where I actually was there in the IIT, and I was part of Hostel One, the Queen of Campus, and also in my second year at the MTech, I was the Chia representative for my class, and so the first floor Chia canteen remains still the one of my favorite places where we used to go between the breaks and have some tea, snacks, etc. And my after my MTech, my first organization was Fluent India Private Limited. So that was the time where this concept of softcore was also coming. Like people used to say that okay, there is a software companies and there is a core chemical companies, but then there were a softcore companies where probably the some areas like computational fluid dynamics and computer aided engineering were picking up, growing up, picking up that time. And fortunately, I was fortunate enough to join Fluent India from got selected in the campus interview, and I joined Fluent India Private Limited in the year 2002. I stayed with there for about 5 years and basically associated with the multiple industries related to mainly the chemical industries, material processing industries, as well as the biomedical was coming that time. So I also done some simulations in terms of saying that, okay, if you take a nose, if you take air from the nose and goes to your heart, what's the kind of pressure drop might be happening? So I have taken up that type of projects also that time. There were also some projects at that time happening with the drug eluting stent was a new thing. So there were a few research projects like, okay, if your drug eluting stents are there and how much time it takes for the stent to get dissolved completely and what kind of concentrations you can expect the outside. So that was my initial things in terms of like apart from chemical and as well as the chemical and material, a little bit on the biomedical side. And definitely this computational fluid dynamics was new to chemical industry that time, but quite a bit accepted in the auto and aero industries. So they were the higher in the curves, higher to the curves for, compared to us in terms of adaptation of these technologies. So after my 5 years with the Fluent, I joined the Eaton Technologies Private Limited, where the CAE was put up in a larger way, and then you have a different type of pumps, compressors, the new types of valves, even the this whatever the this electric hybrid things were coming. So that's the 2007 to 12 was the time period where these technologies were kind of like getting developed. So I became the part of that teams which was developing such technologies of the say series hybrid, parallel hybrid, electrical hybrids, and how all these technologies can merge together. So I was part of Eaton Technologies for around 2007 to 12, around 5 years. And at the same time, what I felt need is that okay, probably I need to do a go for a management executions because now around 8 to 10 years in the industry, I felt the need for MBA. But uh, what I selected that time was an executive MBA course at the SIBM Pune because both Fluent and Eaton's were in the Pune. I was residing in Pune, and this was rather than online. This was more of a weekend program for MBA. So I joined there and try to learn something more about people management and the strategies, innovation management type of stuff there. But after that, what I realized is that despite all these MBAs or the experiences around that, I'm going away from my core, which is chemical engineering. And that was the time where I started searching for a job in the chemical industry, and fortunately, I joined Reliance in the December 2012. So basically, that's the where like kind of like a going from softcore to a multinational companies, mainly going towards auto aero type of things. I came back to the core of Reliance Industries, and I'm working with the Reliance Industries for last 8 years. And my focus area remains in the still remains a part of CAE, but now since the reaction engineering became the heart of all the chemical processes, so that's the one area where I'm specializing now in terms of what about your fluidized bed reactors, packed bed reactors, what kind of conversions are happening, especially the stud tanks. How do you improve the performance of that? So that remains my current areas. So coming to all that questions, probably one of the questions always probably is asking is that why did I choose chemical engineering? Because like that was the time, right around 2000 was the time, 96 where I joined the engineering, and 2000 I graduated. That was the time where everyone was going towards software, and that was a new arena for everyone. But why did I choose chemical engineering? Then when I look back, probably when I was right in the 10th standard, I used to go a lot of into employment news type of this thing, employment newspaper. And there I used to see a lot of, like, here you see the electricians or something. But that time there were a lot of ads were there on the chemical engineers in the employment news, especially on the Middle East and other areas. So that was the probably one of the reasons I choose chemical engineering, and somehow it fit into mine. And still I feel great that okay, I choose the chemical engineering, and I really want to continue on that. And probably after this session, probably you will also appreciate why chemical engineering is still one of the most sought after occupation. So one thing is definitely when we talk about the chemical industry, it's a huge. You might not see them in the very big in the news, etc. But once you read any government reports or India's import export data, then you realize that chemical industry is the one of the biggest industries for India, generating a lot, contributing a significantly to our revenues or GDP of the country. And it's not only big, but it is a big and growing fast. So it is still projected to grow around 10% CAGR. And basically, there are a lot of new projects which are being getting announced. Even in the after the COVID scenarios, you see that there are more and more things are coming. And in terms of Atmanirbhar Bharat, as well as the other Make in India, even government is also focusing a lot on the chemical industry, and there is a investment of at least 8 lakh crore which is government is looking for in terms of petroleum, chemical and petrochemical investment. So definitely chemical industry is bound to bound to grow in India. So basically, when we talk about a chemical industry, so basically the first things comes in our mind is that these big plants, like probably might be something like a Reliance Jamnagar campus where you have for the acres and acres, the big plants are coming, the chimneys coming there. But basically, there are multiple sectors of this chemical industry, which has everyone has their own small features, and everyone offers a slightly different employment opportunities, each of them. So basically, I have tried to list out in the 5 or 6 six categories here just to differentiate how they are different from each other. But basically, even there might be some overlap into all of them. For example, like oil industry definitely is the biggest chunk of your chemical industry. And in the oil industry, you have upstream industries where you get the oils and gas out like Bombay High or probably Godavari KG basins in the east coast. So basically, that's where you are getting the oil and gas out. Definitely, India doesn't have such a high oil reserves. So upstream still depends a lot on the import. But where we have progressed significantly, despite having not many oil fields in the India is actually the downstream industry. So basically what we do is that we import the crude, we process it, we make a very valuable chemicals from it like a petrol, diesels, gasolines, and as well as the petrochemicals, and many part of that gets exported back also. That's how you see that the it's a basically the upstream and downstream. So downstream, definitely India is making a good presence, and now even the worldwide companies are looking for setting up a downstream chemicals like a petrochemical complexes in India. And definitely this industry is such a high capital intensive that you want government to be a kind of a stakeholder. So many companies which are coming from the outside, they are trying to go with the some collaborations with the government to take it forward. But definitely the downstream industry is rising big in India. Then basically another way we can look for the chemical industries, which are the completely different skill sets probably might be required, is a bulk chemical versus specialty chemicals. This is more like a bulk chemical is a one where probably the product is standardized. Say, example, you take something like a urea, then it's a basically you purchase from anyone. It's a like a commodity chemicals. So basically you purchase from anyone, you almost get the almost same chemical. Whereas in the specialty chemicals is the one where you make the chemicals for the particular needs, specifically say dyes, the dye industries or some of the lubrication industries, where the material is getting the specialized for them. So here a lot of the emphasis goes into the smaller volume, but getting a very high right product quality. So basically, these are the two very different. In bulk chemicals, you get the margins when you go in terms of the economy of scale. When you produce it in the scale and try to reduce out your cost of conversion, so that's how you make the money there. Then you also have the petrochemical industries. So again, like people talk about like nowadays, I think like last 3 or 4 conferences which I attended, especially on the refinery sites, they are all focusing on the refinery and petrochemicals. Probably I will come to that a bit later in terms of like why petrochemical is becoming more and more important. But right now the just understanding is that basically anything which is derived from the crude is kind of like a petro or refinery, but anything which is coming out from your refinery and getting converted into something else, so that part of industry, so you can say that the even downstream of the downstream, that is one the petrochemical industry, and polymers make a very large part of it. When we talk about the polymers, it sounds positive. When we talk about it as a plastics, it's a slightly negative terms nowadays. But yeah, plastics and polymers are becoming a very important part of the our lives, and it's going to grow in the India. Then you also have the specialty chemicals in terms of fertilizers, pesticides, agro. In the pharmaceuticals is again like a typically small to medium scales industries India have, but India has become the pharmacy of the world. So pharmaceuticals is one of the large area where chemical engineers are making significant contributions, right from the whatever the in the pharmaceuticals, what happens is that like there is a chemist and pharmacist who produce who find out a drug. They do the laboratory experiments, make a drug, but how to produce it in the good scale. So that scale up and the productions, that's where the chemical engineers play a large role. So that's where the pharmaceuticals is one of the largest employer of chemical engineers. Then about coming, looking from now from the a slightly different perspective, saying that, okay, now I'm working in a chemical company, then what is the role I'm taking? Or probably who can employ the chemical engineers? So there basically in the heart of chemical industry remains the two players. One is the technology development. So say that example, they take it like any polymer, say polyethylene. So there are at least 4 or 5 companies who are working mainly in terms of developing some technologies for the polyethylene. And then there are probably another 40-50 companies who are borrowing that technology, licensing that technology, and actually putting the plants and doing operations and making polymers and selling them. So these are the two main players which remains the heart of chemical industry. And the qualification is not very watertight. There might be some players like Exxon, BP, or even Total, which are on the both the end. They play the both the roles at one point or other. For some technologies, they do not only do the development, but they have their own plants as well, and they do license their technologies to others as well. So these are the two remains the two main players around it. But what they create around is that the complete ecosystem around them. And because of these ecosystems, what happens is that there are multiple new type of players which have come and which has taken up a part of that technologies or part of that and started specializing and making big around that. So then you have the detailed engineering company, like say examples like a Jacobs or other companies whose focus is more in terms of like, okay, you have the basically you have something on the laboratory scale test tube level. Then you also have the something which is done at the pilot plant, and now you want to put up a complete plant. So you do all your critical equipment designs, your reactor around heat exchangers, distillation columns, etc. But how do you do the complete detail engineering? How do you connect them together, make out the plant layout, put up all the smaller components like pipes, pumps, valves, and all the sensors around it? So that's what the job they role this detail engineering companies do. And fortunately, there are many detailed engineering companies in India who have specialized so much that they are not only doing the detail engineering only for the Indian clients, but basically they have become the backbone of the almost all Middle East companies there. So basically, they again, I mean, like I know that many of my batchmates who graduated in the 2000 in the chemical engineering or who are still in the core in the after even my master's batches, there are a lot of them are doing very good in this detailed engineering type of companies. Then there are the companies which are the basically make a living out of the making out this equipment, say your heat exchangers or filters, dryers, cyclones. And here you have the again you have the large spectrum of the companies from the very small scales to medium scales to even some giants like L&T. So there are you have the quite a wide range of the manufacturer companies around that. Then there are the companies which are help you in terms of like a sensor technologies like Honeywell's. So they are I would say that the sensor and process optimizations again are quite close related. So many of these companies are in the both the field, but basically process optimizations again you have the companies like specifically again this is comes into the software areas where your simulation software companies like Spence and others are coming. So they are the ones who are help you in terms of process optimizations. There are the some things like HTRI and other type of companies which help you there. So so there is a whole spectrum of the players. So basically, when you say about the chemical engineering or core job in the chemical engineering, it can be into the any of this field. And definitely there is also the field specially dominated by CSIR laboratories in terms of laboratory research. But there are also many entrepreneurs who are focusing on the laboratory research also. And they are helping in terms of making the technologies and especially to the small scale companies to medium scale companies, providing a lot of laboratory research out of that. And universities also can play a big role here in that part. A lot of professors are kind of like helps people with this laboratory research type of jobs. And then there is a whole spectrum of consultant, right from the consultants which helps you the safety, helps you place okay probably how do you make your plant safer, to pollution controls, to many one who are specialized into the particular technology. Say there are certain consultants who are more on the utility or some consultants who are very specialized into, say, a plant, a process like a PET or probably FCC catalyst. There are consultants who can recommend the right catalyst for your plants. So there are multiple type of players available in the markets, and so core industry has a variety of jobs. And though it is called a chemical industry, but once you look in a deeper spectrum, there are quite a variety available there. So basically, when you talk about the chemical industry around any all these jobs, etc., but everyone will talk the two main words for any decision into chemical industry. Like if as a chemical engineer, what you do in the plant. If someone asks you, so probably your final answers will come into either two of these numbers. That is capex and opex. Like as I said, is that the chemical industry is a highly capital incentive or highly asset intensive. So basically, if you just take a comparisons like one chemical plant, probably putting up a small to medium scale chemical plant, medium to large scale, can range anything from 100 crore to might be up to 30-40,000 crores. So basically, that's the kind of like investment people make in terms of chemical industry. And even if you look at a plant which is say 1,000 crore, and you might be having just 10 or 15 people running it efficiently. So it's so less labor manpower intensive versus so much on the capital intensive side. So basically, if you can save even 5-10% of the capex in terms of, because what we learn in the third year, fourth year of engineering in terms of equipment designs, we put up a very large safety factors, and that is required for safety. But more and more you go into details and then you try to find out, okay, how do you optimize the capex? So that becomes like one of the major contributor to the industry, because capex is the one of the biggest uh, hindrance for the new players coming into chemical industries, or same companies putting up a new multiple plants there. And the second part, obviously, which the jobs, like what happens is that after you have already done the capex, you have already put up the plant, and typically that once you put up the plant with 500 or 500 crores, the plant is going to run for the same for 20 years. But you can't allow that for run to same as the 20 years. So you have to make the incremental improvement. And for that, these OPEX things come into the picture. So basically what you try to do is that you try to reduce the conversion, you try to improve the heat efficiency of your plant, energy efficiency of the plant, you try to perform all the analysis like a pinch analysis and different type of optimization techniques to try to reduce your OPEX or conversion cost. So basically, or many times like what also people do is that they also try to do in terms of like a try to get the more out of the same capex, try to increase the throughput of the same plant. You might have heard that, okay, probably the plants which are designed for say 100 tons per annum are over the time with the small debottlenecking have gone from 100 to 140, 160, 200 tons per annum kind of things. So that's where the basically chemical engineers do. What they try to do is that they try to reduce the operational expenses, try to see opportunities of reducing the OPEX, and also try to see the how the throughput can be increased for the same assets and where are the debottlenecking opportunities, and then that's how they help the companies to make out much more profits. So together these two words, now you might have heard this word, or you might be hearing whenever you see work with these companies, that the term which is coming is that what is the total cost of ownership. So basically say you are owning an asset, and then probably your OPEX will be there for another 5 years, 10 years. You will be spending some money on the operational expenses. So what can become the total cost of ownership? And specifically when the people go for the new technologies, so this analysis becomes very important, saying that, okay, not only you are putting up less money right now, and it's a general for most of the industries now, not only for the chemical industry. Say if you are allowing a company to build an airport, and then you are giving them the saying that, okay, might be 5 years or 10 years, you might be able to operate it and then hand it over back to the government. So then the company look around for the complete spectrum, saying that over the 5 years or 10 years period, how much money they are going to make. Similar is happening for the build, operate, transfers of the roads. So, but for chemical industries, it becomes these two are the most important words, and most of the chemical engineer jobs circle around one of these two. Then there are the few more words like that. That's more of like chemical engineers and chemical companies. But what you hear more about nowadays is that probably uh, uh, a lot of things are going to change within next 5 years, 10 years period. So basically, are we ready for that? But before being ready, at least what are these words which are making actually their presence felt on the chemical industry as a whole? So very first thing started, it all started when the people started realizing, okay, accepting. People realized quite a bit before, but now accepting that climate change is the actual issue. Climate change is happening. And whenever there is a climate change and the things are happening, people, you see that any just do a Google of the climate change, and probably the two things pictures you see most of the time is that you will see either a vehicle which is polluting it out, or a big industry or industry which is having the big stacks at the chimneys there, and there is a black smoke which is coming out. So basically, whenever you say that okay, some rivers is getting polluted, probably the journalists are going to behind with saying that okay, there is some chemical company who are releasing the chemicals into the river. So basically, chemical industry as a whole, or chemical industry, is the one which is always kind of like at the forefront of because of that. And once the industry has started accepting that okay, these things are happening, then the companies are starting to act on that. So basically, so that's where the next term came in terms of saying that okay, our company will become the carbon neutral by say 2030, 2035, or 2040. So the big companies like the big companies like BP to even Reliance or others, they are all declaring in their annual report saying that okay, our company is going to become the carbon neutral by so and so years. So so that's where like the companies are coming there and saying that okay, okay, we understand that okay, we are the ones who are, our business is such that probably we will leave out something into the atmosphere, but at least we will try our best, or we will ensure that we will be compensating for that. So we will be making the carbon neutrals. Our company will become the carbon neutrals, or even the countries themselves are saying that okay, our country has to become carbon neutral by this year. So how do you do become the carbon neutral? So definitely the first one, the very first things is that the carbon is the source of energy for all of us. The reasons carbon is being used is because we need energy. What if your car doesn't have petrol, diesel, or probably even your CNG or in the cooking gas? So basically, wherever there is a energy, carbon has become like a preferred source of energy since the World War II at least. So around from 1942 around like 2020 now. So 60, 70 years, carbon has become the a synonym with the energy. So now people are saying that okay, if we have to become the carbon neutral, then probably we will need to reduce the dependent on fossil source and go more towards the renewable energy. So that's the one part of it, and another part which is probably making the present felt over the at least last 2 years. The people have realized that okay, probably electric vehicles is the one which, or renewable energy or electric energy is a good thing, but probably there are many drawbacks or technological challenges which may not allow us to reach the goal. So we need some complementing technologies, and that's where the word hydrogen economy is coming. I have a complete slide on hydrogen economy and industry 4.0. So I will touch upon them in the coming slides. So basically, uh, uh, how am I doing on the time? Like, is it
So you have probably 10 minutes for delivering content.
Okay, sure. I'm sorry. Yeah, I will go. I will try to complete in 10 years. So basically, what's happening nowadays in that what are the changes which are affecting chemical industry? As we have talked about, there is a solar energy, electrical energy. There is also the hydrogen economy or hydrogen energies which are coming, but most of them are targeting the fuel sections or the replacing out the fuels. But then there is a carbon industries, the petrochemical industries, which also talk about the material. The same car which is going from the same car which is trying to use either electric or hydrogen, most of its parts are now getting metal parts are getting replaced with the one or another metal, a plastic or the composite part, something which is derived from this crude oil. So basically the demand of these materials are coming. So, and it's not only the automobiles, like you go any industries like from medical syringes or your PPE suits, there is a good demand of the petrochemical materials are there. So basically what's happening is that your the top three like the jet fuel, kerosene, petrochemical or even LPG demands might be decreasing, but then polymer, petrochemical and to a certain extent LPG, their demands are increasing. So basically the companies or the chemical engineers are being forced to derive the new separations or conversion technologies, because current technologies are there. The crude gives you all six of them, and there are not many technologies available where you convert your plants which is producing petrol or diesels and start producing polymers out of it. So these technologies needs to be developed, and that's where a lot of chemical engineers and chemists together are focusing their energies in producing it out. Even during pandemic, when the during pandemic many refineries where jet fuel was not getting picked up, initially for few days they were able to store that jet fuels, but after that the production has to be get curtailed, because the technologies are such that current technologies that you all produce all this in some proportion, and that proportions are not flexible. So basically new technologies needs to be developed where you have more of these chemicals directly from the crude, and probably have the flexibility in terms of producing lesser of the fuels. And when we talk about the hydrogen economy, then basically what happens is that your hydrogen is there, you hydrogen bonds, you have to give some kind of energy to convert between hydrogen and oxygen, and later you put it where you need the energy, especially is like your vehicles or hydrogen fuel cells, where hydrogen and oxygen will combine to produce the water and gives you out the energy. But the challenge remains in this hydrogen economy is that there are the two major challenge. First challenge is that how do you connect the production to the consumptions? How do you take the hydrogen from here in some remote plants where you are producing hydrogen and connect it to take it to the point of consumption? Because hydrogen is basically it's one of the most reactive material. So keeping it and transporting it remains the challenge. And the second part of it is that the what is the kind of energy you supply here to produce water from the hydrogen. So here mainly the answers like is that at current about 90-95% of hydrogen is produced by steam reforming. So basically you burn the hydrogen with the some of the hydrocarbon like methane or probably coal there, and then you produce. So then you generate a lot of CO2. So basically then you are again, though hydrogen is a fuel, is a clean fuel, you are generating a CO2. So then the challenge remains is that, okay, whatever the CO2 which is coming, can we capture that out? So there are a multiple, and again the challenge comes is that CO2 is like a one of the most stable compound which does not react much with others. So probably what you have to do is that react it with some things like say lime or amines or something like that, where you capture that, react with them, and then after doing it, what do you do? So probably current solutions where a lot of companies are working is that just dump that out into the ground, but then it doesn't miss out the economic purpose. So people are talking about coal to methanols and other type of technologies where you actually generate this CO2 and try to make some uh, 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 money out of it by converting into some valuable chemicals. Then again, the industry 4.0. That's where again the soft core type of things are coming there, where a lot of chemical engineers with the very good in terms of very good uh, I would say very good zeal for even the internets and programmings and software together, or might be chemical engineers combining with the computer engineers, and can make a very big changes into the uh, uh, very big changes into the way chemical industries are operating. So one of the things is definitely Internet of Things. So for that, probably remote monitoring is the one thing which is becoming a very popular over the years. So what is happening is that like might be today we have people half of your staff is sitting at home, but from their laptop they can monitor all the critical parameters of your plant, temperature at the critical junctions, your whatever the pressures or some your species concentrations. So this type of things you can monitor from that. There are also some companies offering the drone technologies, so that okay your basically your stake might be or there or your my chemical plant might be good enough big enough for 6 7 stories, but you utilize the drone type of technologies which moves around your plant and gives you a real time pictures of what is happening around the plant. So that type of things, remote monitoring things are becoming important, and that is for more from outside, but from the inside also, a lot of asset monitoring tools are coming to the market, which helps you to preventive maintenance. Like specifically, say you say your compressors or turbines where you monitor vibrations, or there are some pipelines where you monitor the corrosions and over the years and continuously keep monitoring them as a asset monitoring, and which helps you to make a preventive maintenance based on that monitoring rather than the fixed time period. Similarly, there are also emphasis on the predictive performance. Like before your plant is there or before you debottleneck your plant to say you're going for higher 20-30% capacity, you test that on the digital twin. So you make a model which is replica of your plant. So that's called that is being termed a light in the digital twins. And there are again the statistics and physical based model, because whatever the sensors and other things, they generate a lot of data. So can you utilize this data for making the performance based model, or even the better control of your, going for a better control, better optimize real time optimizations of your plant. And people are going even one step further, saying that not only the real time optimizations, but AI based optimizations. Yeah, like computer itself takes the decisions, saying that okay, what should be the temperature or what should be the flow of some things to make benefit. Suppose the same heat exchanger or the chiller which is working on the daytime versus the night time, and because considering that your ambient nighttime benefit, can I increase the chiller capacity? So that type of tools which are being developed through AI based technologies. So that's how happening. And obviously there are also like a research is chemical industries, any modifications would be uh, incomplete without the advanced materials. So as the other industries are demanding the composite materials or better materials, like tire industry is demanding new, we have moved from tubeless normal tube tire to tubeless tires, and then we are talking about self filling elastomers. So all these new materials development to productions, etc. 3D printing, if it has to come up in a long way, then all your materials which you are producing are also need to be compatible with the 3D printing. So how do you control viscosity of these materials? How do you control the flowability, curing of these materials? So that's one of the another research area remains for the industries. So coming to it, like I know I have accepted that my timeline, but the message I wanted to give you is that chemical industry is big on the investment, and even when we talk about okay chemical industry or a core job, but it has many phases. within the same companies you might, or within the same company you might have different roles. You might have the different players playing in the same industry, or you might have the completely different segments requiring the different skills when you once you join that type of industry. And traditionally industry changes slow because of the large capex involved, but changing global scenario is forcing them, I would say that the forcing the chemical industry for innovating multiple opportunities and changing fast. Yeah, so uh, thanks for the patient listening, and sorry for overshooting the times, and uh, might be like we might have some few questions there.
So we have a question, Khyati. I'm reading it out. Generally, the chemical industry is accused of being an evil causing a lot of environmental problems. Do you think the Indian chemical industry is competent and ready enough to take steps towards this in the near future in accordance with the world's standards? What current positive steps have been taken recently?
Okay. So I would say answer is yes. Indian chemical industry is matching step to step with the world. Like previously, okay, we had something like if you look around for the gasoline, so Bharat 4 or something, but now you see that the basically Bharat 6 or something, which are the fuel which is sulfur less than 10 ppm, and which is meeting the global standard. Or definitely there are small industries which are there, which probably might not have the enough money for treating out waste, etc. So for there again, like what's happening is that the chemical industries are small players are coming together and say for a particular industrial area. Just give example, say Vapi GIDC. So there might be so many players there. Then they are coming together and then making sure that okay, there are some waste treatment plants, etc. are available, which treats out. Obviously, government is doing the same from their end as well, in terms of whatever this I've talked about, like PCI, PR, or helping them from going from small to bigger one, like Opal in the Bharuch, which has came up about like a 3 to 4 years back. So government is coming up with these areas where some of these facilities are available and helping even the small players to meet these challenges. I hope that answers the questions.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else with questions, please feel free to unmute yourself and ask, sir.
Hello. Am I audible?
Yes, yes.
Sir, so I wanted to ask that on an undergraduate level, since we see the industries actually require, if we look at the current scenario, we are considering safety, sustainability, and all such aspects. But if we consider the curriculum, exactly it is not molded in such a way so as to meet the current requirements that the industries have. So, in those terms, how do undergraduates actually play a role in improving the quality of the industries?
Right. I think that's a very valid question. So basically, as an undergraduate, our focus is more in terms of understanding the basically how these equipments or other how these equipments or the plants are there. So basically, you have the courses on say heat transfer, mass transfers, and the fluid flow. So basically, these three, and along with that, the chemical reaction engineering, this forms the backbone of the chemical industry. So unless you know these basics, so basically if someone asks, someone says that okay, I want to reduce the increase the my say my safety has to be done because I need to ensure that my temperature doesn't go below above certain things. So how do I design this particular equipment? So probably that is what is being taught in your basic chemical engineering there, and that knowledge remains the backbone of all the safety process. And basically, if you see around, like we have the group of, say, Indian Institute of Chemical Engineers, and there we basically some messages where there is any small incidents are happening, say in the Vizag, probably I think like you might have seen that the probably a year or two back, I think, yeah, 2 years back, there was some leak from the styrene plant. Then there was some gases which has happened, and people say that okay, whether what kind of things are there. Basically, is the chemical industry is taking enough steps? But then there were few chemical engineers from the ICT Mumbai, or alumni of ICT Mumbai. They came up with their report, and then they talked about is that probably what has gone wrong is something on the very basic principles of these things, in terms of like whatever the way storage tanks are designed and the way it has been taught into your chemical industry. So the same things probably was not taken care. So idea is that, like, okay, when you are in the when you are focusing on your undergraduate, basically we expect the engineers to learn thoroughly all the basics. Because what happens is that, even including myself, a lot of people who work for a few years in the chemical industries, they start focusing on the areas which are very close to their work, and they don't have that time to go and refreshing that basic chemical engineering calculation. They rely a lot more on the people who are coming graduates, which are coming outside, coming from the coming from the colleges, to recheck all that calculations. So that's where your role becomes very critical for the fresh graduates, either BTech, MTechs, who are joining there. So checking everything that fundamentally. If you check that fundamentally, probably say, I would say that 90% of this safety equipment, safety incidents can be avoided.
Thank you, Sunny.
So we have another question from Mohit Gaikwad. How are Indian chemical industries doing in terms of using resilience engineering for safety aspects?
Uh, that's basically a little tricky questions, because industry is doing a lot in terms of safety. But again, there are many players or many industries which we say that the jugaad. We are proud as a chemical, we are proud as an Indian to solve the multiple problems with the jugaad, saying that okay, probably your filter is not working properly, rather than completely replacing filter. How do you fix something there? So there are, so basically I would say that that's a kind of like the jugaad is being used for the resilience in the manufacturing. You want to make sure that, see, in a chemical plant, if your plant remains a shutdown even for a day, you are losing the 100, at least tens to hundreds crores. So basically, there is a lot of pressures on the people who are working there to make sure that they show the resilience in the productions. So basically, when the pandemic came, and when there was a demand drop, so then again there was a resilient in terms of saying that okay, how do I keep my plant operating, as well as how do I mix and match my products here to make sure that my plant doesn't stop. So basically, people find out a different ways of saying that, okay, uh, putting up the fuels into some tanks, etc. Even when if you would have followed the news, so there was a time when I think the just around the end of the first wave of the around end of the first wave of the COVID, the crude price WTI crude price went actually negative. That your crude prices actually went negative, and at that time there were a lot of innovations people were doing in terms of saying that okay, why don't India set up a very big tanks and reserves to put up there. Even the Chinas and other things, they have almost booked every ship available on the ocean to get that crude that at that time. So there are multiple things are there, but what I would say is that since the question is tricky, is that there is a lot of efforts on the safety, but probably somewhere there is a resilience is more towards the resilient engineering is more towards the continuation of the operations, or making sure that okay, your plant doesn't stop, or probably taking some of the economic benefits which are available in the market. So people show resilience in different way. So I would say that yes, probably safety style, probably people are not that resilient. They go for safety when they are forced to do that. Yeah, that's true, and that is my personal opinion. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else with any questions? Please go ahead. We have another question from Ankur Kuldeep. Recent BP report says that we should move towards renewable resources and make petrochemical. So, with this background, what do you think the future of Indian refineries is?
Uh, uh, I think like okay, I probably rushed through that slides, but yes, renewable energy is the future, and it's going to remain the future. But like if you go through the current research papers, etc., there are multiple technologies are coming into the oil to chemical. So the basically whatever the your backbones of the previous chemical industries like FCC or the your distillation columns or the crude refining are there, they are being tweaked. So companies are coming with the different innovative technologies for converting crude directly to there. There is residual FCC. So basically what happens is that when you refine the crude, basically you were taking out most of the like a lighter part or the probably less than C7 distilled out directly, and the bottom ones were going for the further crackings, etc. So now the people are reevaluating their strategies. Even like Mukesh Ambani's speech, if you see in the last Reliance AGM, they talked about that Reliance is developing its own in-house a technology called multi-zone catalytic cracking, which can give almost up to 70 to 75% chemicals from the crude. Probably currently it might be 30-35%. And then there is another towards the aromatics. So basically from crude, initially when your gasolines, etc., gasoline, you do not want it too much of the xylenes and other parts. So people are talking about, okay, how do we take out these aromatics as well and convert them to the petrochemicals, because they are again the valuable chemicals which can be utilized. So benzene, toluene extractions type of technologies, they are all people are working on. So yes, definitely different companies are working on the different technologies, and we will definitely see a change into the way refineries are configured currently, or the way future refineries will be configured. It's definitely, but definitely whatever the refineries are standing today, they are like thousands to 10,000 crore rupees. So they are not going to go waste. So people will do some tweaking into that and try to keep meeting. And again, the changes will be gradual. So people are hoping that over, even if like the Norway is becoming the completely renewable energy, but probably India might still have the fossil fuel or at least 50% till even 2035, 2040. That's what the market reports are saying.
Thank you, sir. We have a minute left. Does anyone want to ask the last question or? Okay, so I think that's about it. Thank you so much, sir, for joining in and giving us your time. And thank you to all the attendees as well for joining in. I hope we've had an interactive and informative session, and looking forward to more interaction with you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you everyone for patient listening and interesting questions. Feel free to contact. Like I think you will have these details. So even after the sessions, if you have some queries, etc., feel free to pass on the questions to Tanharika or contact me. No issue for that. Thank you. Thanks a lot, everyone.
Thank you, sir. Have a good day.
Bye.
Thank you everyone for joining in. I'll be ending the session now. The recording will be available on YouTube soon after.